how does one even begin to think about building an Iron Dome over Europe?
Now, or the European version is the drone war, right? Basically, so they're going to be odd. Um, it's not. It's absolutely plausible. Is my rough assessment of things.
How does it become plausible?
Um, let me know if this is too long, much of a detail. But basically, Iron Dome in itself in the U.S. between U.S. and Israel in the 2010s, late 2000s, costed about 1 to 2 billion to build the whole system they have. Which is roughly a missile with a very fast propulsion system, a multi-sensor fusion, with a warhead that synchronizes to a global radar of some kind. That's roughly the stack of most counter UAV systems. Um, Unlike strike drones, which hits usually stationary targets or at most, walking vehicle speed targets on the ground, a interceptor drone like the ones in Iron Dome, let's call it a drone, let's call it a missile, let's say the line's getting very blurred, right?
Hmm.
It needs to hit a three-dimensional object, which is Shaheeds, traveling at 300 to 400 kilometers an hour in three-dimensional space, sometimes in the night and not even daytime.
Hmm.
So the amount of sensor you have for that, the amount of compute you have for that, the amount of time it takes for you to lift off or warm up your engines.
Hmm.
And this is why you often see counter drones shoots out of canisters, which
Yep.
is pressurized. Yeah, it decreases the time it takes to accelerate that initial phase, right? And there's also arguments to be made between turbojets and electric propulsion on the actual propellant. And then obviously the software that synchronizes between edge compute and global. Like, so the global radar sends a intercept vector, but once you get close enough, your local sensors has to adjust for a proximity
In
detonation
real time.
in real time, in very low latency requirement real time environments.
Hmm.
That specific thing, right? So with everything I just said, building one of these interceptors is just going to cost a lot more money than the drones that they're intercepting.
Right.
Simple technical maths, right? Simple technology requirements cost maths. Um, and it costed basically US and Israel $1 to $2 billion to do this back in the day. I would argue, though, it is very much possible if you imagine everything I just said, and especially on the compute and sensor side today in 2025, to build this again from scratch. It will cost probably a fraction of that, and that is within the realm of venture capital backable scale. It's actually not that crazy.
And so it actually
That
becomes
to
something that
say,
could happen. It's just not in the way that we would have thought it.
right, and it's not crazy. Of course, all the primes also building this as well, right? So there's a lot of
Hmm.
research going on to the space, everything from interceptor drones as well, lasers very short range, for example. But what it's looking like is that the technology capabilities looks very similar to Israel, where there's different ranges of sensors, different range of interceptor methods. If you're within 1 to 2 kilometers, you probably be right now. It looks like the direct energy lasers is actually the future for that range. But
Hmm.
if you're beyond 20 to 50 kilometers, an actual interceptor drone needs to fly out and intercept it. But all in all, it's definitely cheaper than spinning up F-35s, which is kind of what we're doing now. Every time something flies in, which is expensive. Um,
Expensive to fuel, expensive to build, expensive to maintain.
right. But if you imagine the coverage area of, let's say, Tel Aviv or Israel extending along the eastern flank,
Hmm.
it's going to cost a lot of money, but from a technical perspective, it's not impossible. It's almost plausible that if you want to do that, you could do that. It's just going to be really, really expensive. It's not like, going to Mars expensive.
Not going to Mars. That seems like an expensive affair right now.
But you know what I mean, right? Like it's capable and it's technology for it. So I do think that there's certain critical paths that could be viable for just European defense in general.
Look, before we let you go, obviously, Project A is one of the top investors in European defense and defense applications since 2024, with rounds since 2019 being 12, rounds since 2024 being 8. How does that feel? Great.
I wish the world wasn't what it is today, to be honest with you. I wish things were better from a geopolitical point of view, from a
Hmm.
conflict point of view. So we're not, how to put this, we're not out there to, we're not actively out there to make money from wars. I don't think that's the right thing to do. And I do believe in deterrence for the most part, as I mentioned before, and or maybe all the Star Trek universe, right, as well. That things will hopefully be enlightened that way. I do think that we are providing a capability that our adversaries already have.
Hmm.
that's pretty evident from
It's
if you look
very
at the
evident.
day, right? So we're not providing it. We're helping other startups. We're helping startups and founders to build those more
And in
precisely.
and I feel that
So I think that's a good thing. Definitely.
there's a misunderstanding in the fact that you are quite literally fueling an ecosystem that has been underserved for a considerable period of time.
Yes, potentially. I think a lot of the technology companies that we back today in defense are overlooked by those prime.